Mr. President, the next vote is going to be a motion to discharge from the Judiciary Committee Judge Holly Thomas for the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Ninth Circuit. And I'm going to vote no. I'm going to vote no because I have not had the opportunity to actually meet Judge Thomas. In a remarkable undermining of senatorial tradition, the Biden administration, White House, is now saying that no senator is allowed to meet a circuit court judge prior to the confirmation vote of the judge. Mr. President, you might be tilting your head at me like, that seems crazy. Well, it is crazy. Every Ninth Circuit judge, a court of appeals that has enormous power over my state, every Ninth Circuit judge that has been nominated by any president since I've been a U.S. Senator, I meet with to discuss issues. This is part of our advice and consent role. And yet this White House is now saying no senator can meet with a circuit court judge even for an hour prior to the vote, despite the fact that they're getting ready to have life tenure. So, Mr. President, this is in line with this administration and, unfortunately, some of my Democratic colleagues who are just smashing institutional norms in this body that have significant bipartisan support. We saw the junior senator from Massachusetts yesterday saying she wants to pack the Supreme Court. I'm sure that's going to lead to a charge of other Democrat senators. My colleagues are all very focused on getting rid of the filibuster, despite the fact that more than half the Democratic conference in April of 2017 wrote a letter to the majority and minority leader of the Senate saying, don't get rid of the filibuster. Now only Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema seem to be the ones defending. I would love it if the press asked questions of the other 26 of my Democratic colleagues who just 4 years ago said, don't do this. But this norm that's being undermined right now, senators being able to meet with nominees to circuit courts, is a new low. I raised this with senior Biden administration White House officials just last week, and they said they'd look into it. They seemed a little confused. The White House counsel for the president finally called me back after I've been trying to get a hold of her because I heard it was her idea. And when I asked her, why are you doing this? By the way, the Trump administration didn't do this. To the contrary, their White House counsel actually tried to get Republican and Democrat senators to meet with circuit court nominees to help maybe get bipartisan votes. So it wasn't the precedent of the previous administration. The White House counsel actually told me, she used this language, we're doing it to protect the judges. Protect the judges. From what? Senators doing their constitutional duty? What are they hiding? Are they really that unimpressive that they have to have their own nominees being protected from us here in the Senate? So bottom line, Mr. President, all of this is patently absurd, and I think many of my Democratic colleagues actually agree with me. I've talked to a number of them, and I don't think this is a precedent that anyone who's a U.S. Senator should want, whether you're a Democrat or Republican. Remember, these judges are going to have enormous power over the people we represent, and they're going to have life tenure. It's not like voting for an assistant secretary, 2, 3, 4 years in the job. Life tenure. And they can't take an hour out of their time prior to the vote to meet with senators. So, Mr. President, I asked these judges in a speech just last week, hey, give me a call. You don't have to get permission from the White House. This is actually a first test of your judicial independence. Call me. I want to talk to you. We didn't hear back from any judges. The White House is still blocking it. And what's really surprising, Mr. President, is the current president is the former chair of the Senate Judiciary Committee. I wonder if he actually knows what's going on with his senior staff, with his White House counsel, where right now no member of the U.S. Senate trying to do their advice and consent constitutional role can even meet with a circuit court judge. I'm pretty sure most of my colleagues don't agree with this. So what I'm hoping for, Mr. President, is to get the White House to change its outlook on this, to follow the example of the Trump administration. I know that might be a hard swallow. And have these judges meet with us. And when I meet with them, I talk about Alaska legal issues. And if you're a judge who grew up in LA and you're an LA judge, you don't know anything about Alaska, but you will have enormous impact on the people I represent. So, Mr. President, I think what you're going to see until we get some cooperation with the White House is I hope most of my colleagues, Republican colleagues, whether they think these nominees are qualified or not, they're going to vote no. They're going to vote no. And the reason is a core principle. We should be able to do advice and consent. And if there was a Republican president in the White House and some of my Democratic colleagues said, hey, can you help me get a meeting with a circuit court nominee who's going to have big impacts on my state, I'd certainly do it. But like I said, we didn't have to do it last time because that was the Trump administration's standard operating procedure. So, Mr. President, I hope we can get to agreement on this. I hope all senators can agree with this. And I'm hopeful that you're going to see, at least with my colleagues, there's going to be no yes votes on any of these nominees. And that's not good. These circuit court judges want a bipartisan confirmation. They're not going to get it until we're able to do our constitutional duty, advice and consent for judges, life-tenured judges, who have enormous power over the people we represent. And I'm hopeful that every member of this body can work with us, work with me, work with the White House, maybe even call the president and say, you know what, this is probably a standard, a principle that you guys want to get rid of. Making sure U.S. senators cannot meet with judges who are going to have lifetime tenure is smashing a bipartisan institutional norm. It's not going to serve this body well at all. I yield the floor, and I encourage my colleagues to all vote no in the upcoming vote to discharge this nominee until we can actually talk to her and see what kind of judge she would be. A very, very reasonable position. So I strongly urge a no vote from all of my colleagues.
Mr. President.
The senator from Illinois is recognized.
Judge Holly Thomas is a nominee for the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Ninth Circuit. She went through the Senate Judiciary Committee. It is a bipartisan committee, 11 to 11. She was before the committee, available for questions, and available for written questions sent afterwards. If the senator from Alaska or any other senator has a grievance with the White House procedure on how it handles nominees, so be it. But is she going to be punished because that decision was made at the White House level? She went through the committee as we asked her to and made herself available. She has an extraordinary record as a jurist. And to dismiss her because of a disagreement with the White House on the procedure on these nominees, I don't think it's fair. I think she deserves to be judged on the merits, and on the merits she should be sitting on the Ninth Circuit. I submit this entire statement for the record and yield the floor.
Mr. President.
The senator from Alaska is recognized.
Mr. President, I want to ask my friend and colleague from Illinois, who's the chairman of the Judiciary Committee, if he could actually work with us. I've already reached out to him and some other Democrat senators. Work with us on this very reasonable request. We do not want, look, you've been here a lot longer than I have, but every time there's a Ninth Circuit judge who's been nominated, I meet with him because it's so important to my state. Alaska gets one Ninth Circuit judge. There's 29 judges on the court. So I would ask respectfully to the chairman of the Judiciary Committee to work with me because this is a precedent that I don't think any senator, Democrat or Republican, once. Literally, you're going to have a White House say, you know what, you're not on the Judiciary Committee, so your advice and consent rule under Article 2, Section 2 is null and void because the White House counsel wants to, quote, protect the judges? Protect them from what? So, Mr. President, I want to work with my colleagues, all of them, particularly the chairman of the Judiciary Committee. He's got a lot of influence, I'm sure, with the White House and the General Counsel's office. But again, I encourage my colleagues, vote no until we start getting meetings and are able to do our duty And this is going to benefit my colleagues on both sides of the aisle over the long term and strengthen this body, not weaken it, which is what's happening right now.